This video will review Lab Excel Assignment 1. The first step is going to be to download the assignment, so I'm going to download mine from here on Blackboard. I'm just going to click on where it says Attached Files and download that file. I'll pause the video for a moment, or you can pause the video for a moment while you download that file. Once downloaded, your file will look like this. Just as in all other labs in Microsoft Office, when we download the file, the first step, I'm going to close this window. The first step is going to be to hit Enable Content up here on the top. So I'm going to click Enable Content. And now I've got the menus that we're used to seeing. The first step is to change the name of the sheet. So at the bottom, it says Sheet 1. Instead of calling it Sheet 1, we're going to double click on that. So I double clicked on it. I'm going to change it to Seating. So in this lab, the scenario is you work for a theater and you're trying to track the number of seats that are available for a show at the theater by seating section. So we're going to use some of the features in Excel to do that. So next, we are going to type in cell A3. So I find cell A3, so I'm in column A and row 3. So this is the address for A3, the one that I have highlighted. I'm going to type 3/31/2018 and then hit enter. Now you may get the pound symbols here. What that means is that the value of that column or the value of that cell is too large to fit in that cell. If I were to click and drag A, once I make it large enough, I'm able to see the value of that cell. So if you have pound signs in there rather than seeing what you typed, that's okay. But you can always see what you typed when you click on a cell by looking up here at the top where you enter your formulas. Next, we're going to do a little bit of formatting. So in the instructions, they tell us to select the range from A1 to E1. So to select the range, I'm going to click on cell A1 and I'm going to drag it over to cell E1. So usually in the instructions, when it tells you to select the range, or in Excel when they say select the range, we're selecting multiple columns. Now this is one way to select a cell. If you accidentally click the little tiny box on the lower right hand side and drag to E1, this will instead copy the row, which you don't want. If you do that, if you hit Control Z, Z as in zebra, it will undo what you've done wrong. The other thing that you don't want to do is if you click on the peripheral of the cell, you get the 4 little arrows. And when you drag like that to E1, it simply moves the cell. Again, this is not what we want. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. You want to click and make sure you're clicking with the large cross, as you see on my screen right now over downtown. You're going to click and drag to E1. We've now highlighted. At the top, in the alignment group, in the Home tab, in the alignment group, we're going to click on Merge and Center. And that will merge all of those cells into one and center the text. Next, in the cell styles, up here at the top, so again, I'm still in the Home tab. In the Styles group, I'm going to click on Cell Styles, and we are going to choose Title. So now we have some nice formatting. We're going to do the same thing with these 2 rows. So once again, we're going to click on A2 to A3. So this time we did A2 to E3. I'm sorry, A2 to E2. So that row, just like we did above it. And we are going to use center again. So we're going to merge and center. And this time for the cell style, we are going to use subtitle. Now on mine, I don't see subtitle. So I'm simply going to use heading 4. And you could use any of these. I'm not really persnickety about which one of these you use for your assignment. So I'm going to do heading 4 for this one. Then I'm going to highlight the next set, merge and center. And for the style on this one, I'll use heading 3. So I just picked a different heading style for each one of these. The next issue on the spreadsheet is the formatting of these column headers. You can see they're too large to fit, so it simply truncates them. It makes it difficult to read the columns, or the column headers. So once again, we're going to highlight A5 to E5, and this time we're going to click on Wrap Text. And you can see that fixes it so that now the text is wrapping below so that we can see the entire column header. We're also going to make them center and bold. So we're going to do center alignment in the alignment group, center alignment, and then in the text group, or the font group, I'm going to make it bold. Next, we're going to insert a new row. So let's say we forgot to enter one of our sections. I can simply highlight row 9 by clicking on the 9 for row 9. It highlights the entire row. Then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click on Insert. That inserts a new row. So the label for this row is going to be back floor. The number of available seats is 132, and the number of sold seats is 108. Next, we're going to remove the balcony. We're going to move that to the end. For some reason, in the instructions, they don't like the balcony being on the top. So to move that, we're going to click on row 6. This time we're going to cut rather than copy. So we're going to hit cut. Then you're going to paste. So we're going to do insert cut cells. And you'll see that it moved the balcony to the end. It automatically removed it from the top. So next we have to fix the column widths. The formatting here looks a little strange, how it line wraps right in the middle of the word. So there's a couple different ways that you can adjust the width. One, to adjust the width between column A and column B, I'm going to double click right between A and B. You can see if I click on A, I have the down arrow. If I click on B, I have the down arrow. But I want to scroll right between the two. There's sort of a sweet spot right there where I get the special arrow that has the left and the right arrow with a solid vertical line. When I double click on that, it automatically adjusts the width to fit the content on the left side. For columns B and C, we're going to do that a little bit different. We're going to highlight B and C. Next, in the format group, in the cells group, so I'm over here on the cells group, we're going to click on format, and we're going to set the column width. We're going to set them both to 9. So that sets both of these columns to 9. Then for D and E, we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to set the column width to 12. You can see that looks a little bit better. So now the formatting's a little bit nicer. All right, next we're going to format some of these numbers. So you're going to select from B6 to C11. So B6 to C11, and again, I'm on step J right now. So step J, we're going to select B6 to C11, and then we're going to click Right Align. So here's the Right Align button in the alignment group. So that right aligns. Next, we're going to increase the indent 2 times. So we're going to hit Increase Indent, which is right here in the alignment group, 2 times. You can see it moves the number over a little bit. Gives us a slightly better formatting on those numbers. So next, we're going to use Microsoft Excel to calculate the percentage sold and the percentage unsold. So presumably, at this theater, you want to have a spreadsheet that shows you what's happening as tickets are sold and unsold. Now, one way that some students are tempted to do these calculations is they'll bring up calculators. So let me do this. Let me bring up the calculator. And if I were doing this the wrong way, we know that to calculate the percentage, all I have to do is take 25 minus 12 divided by 25. So we're going to do 25 minus 12 is 13 divided by 25. That means 52% of the tickets have been sold. So I put 0.52. And that's all well and good. But the correct way to do this, the correct way to calculate the percentage in Microsoft Excel, there's a number of ways you could do this. One, I can hit equals. When you hit equals, when you put the equal sign in, it tells Excel that you're about to enter a formula. So now I can enter the math for my formula, or the arithmetic, I should say. So one way I could do this, and some students I will see do this, they'll say, okay, well I know that the percentage sold is going to be 120 divided by 120 minus 114 divided by 120. Now that's the wrong answer, and I can tell that's the wrong answer because there's no way that 119% of my tickets are sold. So the problem here now, by the way, once I click on it, I can edit at the very top. So to fix this, we have to tell Excel what order of operations. If you remember from math class a long time ago, most likely, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we always put parentheses around what we want to be done first. So here we want the subtraction to happen before the division. Otherwise, it divides 114 and 120 and then subtracts that from 120, which is the wrong way to do this. So now that I do that, that looks a little bit better, right? So now at least it passes our sanity check. The percentage sold is now 0.05, but it looks like I did the math wrong. My apologies, we actually did the percentage unsold. So we can actually just move these over if we wanted to. And I showed you this before, but if we click right on the edge of the line, you can move the field over. So I'm going to click right on the edge and move it over. Now let's go back and operate on these again. So really what this should be, I'll bring my calculator up again, to calculate the percentage, it's simply 25 divided by 12, which in this case is 2.08. Well, that's clearly incorrect, right? It's not 25 divided by 12. If we follow the instructions tell us to take C6 divided by B6. So that's going to be 12 divided by 25. So if I do 12 divided by 25, I get 0.48. So 0.48 is the percentage sold. Again, that's the wrong way to do it. Another way that I could do it, I'll get rid of my calculator, is I'll use Excel to do it. So I'm going to put equals, and I want to subtract I want to divide C7. So I'm just going to type C7 divided by B7. And that gives me 95% sold, which makes sense. Now the other way I could do this, so one other method that I could use to do this, I could hit equals, and I could simply click on the cell. So I'm just going to click on C8, / for divide, and then click on cell B8, and then hit enter. And I get the correct answer again. So I could use any of those methods. Now here's the thing, what I wanted to show you, and let me just show you what I did there. I'll undo that. So when you copy, so when I click this little tiny button on the bottom, and I copy by dragging down, it's going to copy that formula. And what's nice about this is when it copies the formula, Excel is smart enough to know, take a look at what happened. In this column, the value is C8 divided by B8. But then when it copied it to the next column, or to the next row, it automatically changed it to C9 divided by B9. And then again at row 10, C10 divided by B10. And then at row 11, C11 divided by B11. So it automatically incremented the number, so I got the right formula. So I didn't have to retype that formula over and over and over again. Now, I want to show you, if we click on the very top up here, I simply typed in my answer here rather than letting Microsoft Excel calculate that for me. Notice what happens. If I change the number of seats sold, say to 15, this number does not change. However, if I change the number of seats sold in row 7, say to 120, notice that automatically changes. So it's definitely better to let Microsoft Excel do the calculations for you by referencing the cell as opposed to trying to calculate these numbers on your own. I'm going to hit Control-Z twice to undo those changes. I'm going to undo this change as well because I'm going to copy this column straight up above to overwrite the one that was incorrect before. And then once again, I'll copy these going down. Don't forget, when you copy these, you're dragging with the tiny little box on the lower right-hand side. So to review, for this column, you're simply going to hit the equal sign. You're going to divide. So to get the percentage sold, for example, you're going to divide C6. So I simply clicked on C6, divided by B6. I hit enter. That should show you the correct answer. And you're going to copy that formula to the remaining cells in that column. So go ahead and pause the video while you complete this step. Next, we're going to do just a kind of a similar thing. We started it already because I put the wrong formula in here. But we want to get the percentage unsold. There's actually a couple ways we can do that as well. So one method, which you saw me use already, is I calculate the percentage sold and then divide. So you could do that. Let's see, our book at step K asks us to do B6 minus C6 divided by B6. So we do B6 minus C6 divided by B6. This is how our book asks us to calculate it. Don't forget, we have to have the parentheses around B6 minus C6 to force the correct order of operations, and we get the correct answer. So that's certainly one way that you could do this. There is another method that works just as well. If we know the percentage sold, we could simply calculate the percentage unsold from the percentage sold. So to do that, I could do equals 1 minus the percentage sold, and I get 0.52. You can see the equation up here, 1 minus D6. Mathematically, they're both equivalent, and you could use either one of those methods. By the way, sometimes when I click, I'll show you what I did there. If I click up here in the formula box, if I try to click on another box, sometimes it doesn't know that I'm trying to get out of that formula. When that happens to you, just hit the escape key, and that will get you out of the formula entry. So once again, I'm going to click to copy. So I'm going to copy those. Now the formatting is a little bit strange. Obviously we want to see a percentage here. We have a label that says percentage, but I don't see percentages here. So to fix that, I'm going to highlight these values. I'll show you two ways to do this. One is I can highlight the values up here at the top in the number group. So I'm still in the home tab. In the number group, you can hit percentage, and it will switch them to a percentage. The other option is, so we have a very few number of rows in this spreadsheet. But if we had a lot of rows, highlighting all the rows can be a pain if you have 10,000 rows, for example. So sometimes it's easier just to click on the column header and then click percentage. And that will work. You'll notice that it didn't automatically try to turn percentage unsold and put a percentage sign behind it. It knows that that's not a number, so it's not really a percentage. One other thing that we could do if we wanted more precision in the calculations, in the number group, I can add precision. So I can increase the decimal. So if I click that button, notice I get extra decimal places. In some cases, it's helpful to see that. It does round. So you can see in this example, this one is 96%. But if I increase, it's now 95.8% and 95.83%. We could just leave it with one level of precision for now. We could do a little bit more formatting here. We could add bold on these items if you wanted to. That's certainly not a required step. One other thing I want to show you that is not in the instructions, but I want to show you this. We're going to use this later on, and it's not required to do this for this lab, but we could also get a sum of all of these numbers. So if you click in the editing group, there's an auto sum button. So in the editing group, we can click on auto sum, and it gives me the sum of the available seats. I can then copy that column. So now I have the total available seats, the total sold seats, and if I copy these two columns down one position, I now know that I have 87% overall sold and 13% that are unsold. At this point, you've completed the lab, and you'll be turning in this file electronically. So just like any other lab, you're going to save it. So I'm going to click on File, Save As, and then I'll hit Browse and go and name the file, which you guys have been doing all along in the other labs. In the instructions, if you're following the instructions to complete the lab, step I shows you how to show the formulas and take a screenshot of the formulas to turn in. So to do that, you would hold down the Control key and then click the tilde or grave button. This is the button that's above the Tab key on your keyboard, and you would see this happen. So they tell you to do this in the instructions so that when I look at your submitted assignment, I can see the formulas if you were to print out your assignment. So if you printed this out to submit it, this is what you would actually submit as your printout. However, you don't really have to do that since you're submitting this electronically. When I download your file, I can simply hit that button myself to see your formulas. So you don't need to do that for me. I can do the formulas. If you save it this way, that's fine. I can always go back to this by just toggling back and forth. So that's what step I is all about in the instructions. So right after step K, you would be done the lab. So that's it. So once you save this, you'll turn it into Blackboard, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to call it ticket sales _ Brian and save it. You do have to close Excel before you can turn it in, before you can upload it. So I'm going to close Excel. I'm going to click on Excel Assignment 1. Now I can click on Browse My Computer. Mine was saved in Downloads. So I'm going to click on E01P3 Ticket Sales. Click Open. I can see the file is here. It's ready to attach. I'm going to click Submit. And that's it. And once you do that, it'll submit the assignment and you're done. So that's Excel Assignment 1.